We're here at MGW with SVTPerformance.com. We're going to be doing an introduction and an installation tutorial video on the shifter that MGW has designed for the new 2011 to the present MT-82 6-speed manual transmission. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to give a quick overview of what you get in the kit with the MGW shifter. The kit will include, this is your main shifter upper base assembly. That's where your shift knob shaft, and these are the two shift knob shafts that we offer. We have a coarse pitch M12 by 1.75 to accept a lot of the different shift knobs on the market, as well as our rally shift balls. And then we also have the OEM fine pitch M12 by 1.25 shaft. You can specify which shaft that you would like, and you also have the option of purchasing both shafts. This is our lower base assembly. This replaces the entire shifter box, replaces the bushings and everything. These are the bushings that go in that shifter box. They're high temp polyurethane and they already come greased. This is the rear support bracket, and we'll go into detail about that as well. That supports the rear end of the shifter box on these stainless pins. And this is your mounting hardware with Loctite enclosed. This is the spring for the upper base assembly, which we'll go into detail later. We also provide a cup of grease. This is a Teflon impregnated grease to lubricate the inner shaft and the inner pivot cup. One of the things MGW has gone above and beyond is also we have developed and designed our own shift boot, and we will also go into detail of why we did that. This rubber boot replaces the factory OEM unit, and that's what you get in the kit. Okay, let's get into some detail about the lower base assembly and why MGW chose to go all the way with this shifter instead of just doing a top base assembly replacement. We've basically got into the guts of this thing and found a lot of shortcomings with the OEM unit. One of the biggest shortcomings was how this, which is your pivot cup assembly, that is the actual selector that goes inside there, and that's actually how you pivot and change gears front and back, left or right. Well, in the factory casting, it's got little plastic retainers, and these are the little bushings that actually go onto this shaft. They have to be split because one of them has to go in there like this, and that goes in the assembly like that, and then there's one in the back. And as you can see, these are not very substantial bushings. Very thin, very little support, a very soft rubber on the outside, very thin plastic, as well as not very good support around the circumference of the bushing. So you're getting a lot of deflection, a lot of compression of that bushing, and we didn't like that. That was one of the vague feels you get from the factory shifter. By contrast, this is the MGW assembly for the lower base, and as you can see, it's fully CNC machined out of billet aluminum, and it is aircraft grade hard coat anodized, so it's very durable. And as you can see inside, the bushings are a lot more substantial. Here's the factory bushing. Here's the MGW bushing. As you can see, it's almost 3 times the length, front and rear. So you get a lot more support of the shaft. One of the bushings is split because it has to go on the front half, and there's no way to get it around the pivot cup. And I'll show you how that thing gets assembled on there. And it will have some grease on it, so you will get your hands a little messy in this step. Then the back bushing is not split because you can slide it onto the shaft. And then when you assemble it, you just will be putting this in there like that, and then taking the bottom half from underneath the car, putting it on there, and you can see it's trapped in there, supported by the bushings. And these bolts, a lot of people might think that these are cheap zinc plated bolts, and they might wonder why we didn't use stainless steel hardware. These are actually armor coated bolts. We chose not to use stainless steel because grade 8 bolts are really what you want to use for fasteners, much stronger than stainless steel. These have a military spec armor coat on them, which is just as corrosive resistant as stainless steel, with the added benefit of the grade 8 strength. They come with a smooth flat washer so you don't mar up the surface of the anodize, and a locking lock washer. We also provide in the kit some blue Loctite just as an added security feature, but really don't need it in this step. If you want to add it, there's enough to put in those bolts as well. So this box in itself is one of the key things that sets the MGW apart from the other shifters on the market. It basically addresses one of the key shortcomings that we found with the factory shifter and its weak, wimpy bushings by producing a much more substantial support for the shifter. Makes your shifts feel a lot more solid, especially when power shifting and really heavy drag racing. Another major design shortcoming with the factory OEM unit is the rear support bracket. As you can see, this bracket gives virtually no lateral support or up and down support for the shifter when shifting. This is why the factory shifter is very vague, especially the 4 to 5 and the 2 to 3 gear shift, because as you're pushing over, you're actually pushing the base over, not pushing the selector over, and it really makes it hard to catch the gears correctly. I can understand their design was to try to reduce vibration, but I think they definitely went overboard there. The MGW shifter, as you can see, has zero lateral movement or up and down movement, but it's designed in a way so that when you do hard braking and the transmission and the engine are pulled towards the front of the car, the pins will slide in and out easily. These are special high temp rubber and lubricated bushings that do dampen the vibration, so you don't have like a hard mouth that's going to cause a lot of NVH and rattling, but they're so tight and they're so precise that you get very, very little movement. So that makes the shifter feel virtually rock solid when you're shifting, but it also allows, as you can see, it allows the transmission to pull on the shifter mechanism freely under hard braking and hard acceleration. When you accelerate, the whole base is actually going to go back. When you brake hard, it's going to pull forward, and it's going to allow it to slide on these pins. This is one of the key design elements on all of our shifters for the 2005 to present Mustangs, and we use the same design on this as we did on those and the GT500. All right, now let's talk about the upper shifter assembly, because this is the part that obviously you're going to feel the most when you're shifting your car. We'll talk about the reverse lockout mechanism, as well as the actual left to right and front to back spring of the shifter. Well, as you can see, obviously the OEM unit has no left to right spring back, so the only springs it relies on to give you that good 2 to 3 shift are the springs inside the transmission, and we feel those springs are completely inadequate. So that is one of the things that we really definitely wanted to change, and as to the best of my knowledge, nobody else on the market even offers springs, because they don't offer a complete assembly. They only offer a replacement for this, and they use the same pivot ball. We decided to go a route like our older model shifters, where we had adjustable spring pressure to give that better 2 to 3 shift. It also tightens up the shifter, just makes it feel a lot more precise. The other problem we see, and it's very difficult to see here, but this is the reverse lockout mechanism, and as you can see, it's made out of plastic. This thing is designed, and I'll pull the factory unit here and I'll show you real quick. It goes into the assembly like this, and you push down on the spring and move it over, and it slides into that slot. Now, if you replace this top unit only and stick with this factory casting, you have to make the same type of design. The issue we have found is that if you use a heavier spring, when you go to push over in reverse, it can actually lock itself. And as you can see, because there's no spring back on this, this is actually locked into reverse. Now, the transmission spring will pull it back, but over time, doing that is going to wear that plastic out. And if you have an aftermarket one where you have an aluminum or steel on this aluminum with a heavier spring, it's going to get caught there, where you'll have to slap the thing like that to get it out of that reverse mechanism. And that's because the return springs, as well as that design, in our opinion, are not correct. Here's the MGW shifter. And as you can see, it is spring loaded. And the reason it's resting against the reverse plate is because it's not assembled yet. It will have a spring on the bottom side as well, so that as you clamp it onto the lower base assembly, it will center it up nicely, and then you'll have spring back both ways. But their spring back to the left is built into the reverse plate. Now, here's some features about this. We have a patented vibration dampening assembly here that actually separates the lower portion of the shifter with the upper portion where your shift knob is mounted. It has a rubber core, stainless steel hardware clamping the upper half and the bottom half. You can see the 2 different color anodized aluminums. There are 2 gaskets, a rubber gasket here as well as rubber spacers here. That completely removes the black anodized section from the gold anodized section. It doesn't feel loose. It's a very hard rubber, and it's very solid. You will not feel any deflection, but it does do a great job of dampening any vibration that comes up through the shifter. Our reverse plate, by contrast to the factory aluminum casting, is hardened steel. It's actually got a black nitride coating on it, which gives added lubrication.